Pro Football Hall of Famer Dan Fouts. How are you, Dan?
Oh, real good, Rich. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, always. I love having you on. Your first blush thoughts day after at Super Bowl 50. What'd you think of the game, Dan?
Well, it's the old adage that championships are won by defense, and that was a tremendous example yesterday because there were two great defenses on the field, and Denver just, you're number one throughout the regular season for a reason, but they stepped it up from that level to even higher, and it was just a tremendous game plan by Wade Phillips. The execution and desire of his players really paid it all off.
So what was the game plan from your seat, Dan? What you thought?
You can pressure any quarterback, Rich. You know that, and even the guy that is very difficult to get down. But the other part of it was taking tight end Greg Olsen out of the game plan, and much as they tried to do and succeeded with Gronkowski in the AFC Championship game, Greg Olsen was not going to be the big play guy. He got that one throwback pass on the tight end crossing route there, but that was about it for big plays in the passing game for Carolina. The pressure, once you stop a team on first and second down and force those third and long situations, you turn loose Von Miller, you turn loose DeMarcus Ware, and Cam Newton, he just could not handle that pressure.
Dan Fouts joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show. So in this copycat league, what do you think the rest of the league's going to take away from this? Because there's really only one Von Miller when you think about it, Dan.
Well, they're going to be scouting out to all the teams in college trying to find the next one. But how about DeMarcus Ware, too? I mean, his pressure on the other side, and for him at this point in his career to finally get a Super Bowl ring, and then you got to go to John Elway, who brought him to Denver and drafted Von Miller. So I'm sure general managers are going to be looking at that and saying, okay, that's the blueprint now. That's what we've got to do.
So the two storylines we're all talking about today, let's hit them with you because they're both quarterback related. Peyton Manning, do you think he should retire?
Yeah, I do. I mean, why not? He's got nothing to lose now or nothing to gain, really, rather by playing some more. A storybook finish, but he's going to have a lot of options as to what he's going to be able to do once he does retire. But, I mean, do you really want to keep playing after winning a Super Bowl and your 200th career victory? It would be wise, especially with the injury that he had to suffer through this year. And don't forget about the next situation. It's still remarkable that he could come back from that injury.
Yeah, and obviously that he could go out on top. It's such a rarity in sports, certainly in the National Football League, that he has the ability to do that. And should he take that opportunity, he's a smart guy. I think he's definitely going to do that. What do you think his legacy is for a guy that is going to share a room in Canton with him 5 years from now?
Well, the legacy thing, I think, is a lot of media talk and Twitter talk and everything. How can you not say he's one of the greatest of all time, regardless of whether he won the game yesterday or not? He's got the numbers, he's got the record, and now he's one of 12 quarterbacks to win multiple Super Bowls. And I know that means a lot to him. He got that proverbial monkey off his back, and now to be able to say adios with a Super Bowl win is pretty sweet.
Dan Fouts joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show. And then the other story that folks are talking about this morning is Cam Newton's post-game press conference yesterday. That was a lot of one-word answers and then an early walk-off. Put me in his shoes. Can you put yourself in his shoes, Dan?
Well, he's probably a size 15, and I'm only a 10,
Nice.
So, I could slip in there easily because I've been in that situation where I've lost the AFC Championship game twice. You got to face the music. The music is there. He was the band leader for a long time, but it turned sour on him. The only thing in his defense is that somebody with the audio messed up by bleeding Chris Harris' comments into that press conference. And you could see that obviously irritated him. Chris didn't know he could be heard, but he was heard by Newton. And that's no excuse for stepping away and walking out on the press. You got to stand there and face them and answer the questions. It's an unfortunate situation, but I think even more egregious, Rich, is the fact that he didn't go after that fumble. when he had a chance to dive in there, and as big and strong as he is, to pull that ball back and save the Carolina Panthers' last chance of getting back in the ballgame.
Well, I was going to ask you about that because are you as a quarterback taught to not dive in there like that because of what can possibly go wrong by diving it? Look, I know it's a Super Bowl. I know there's a ball on the ground, but aren't you taught to do that?
Rich, you're not taught anything like that. I mean, you're a football player. The ball's on the ground. You're down in the game by 6 points. You've got to go after that ball. There's no excuse for not going after it. And to quote the Water Boy, it's the last game of the year, Rich. Come on, no holding back.
So what does that tell you? What window does that open up into his psyche for you, Dan Fouts?
Well, it just makes you wonder. He's such a great player, and at times he does play like Superman. But just that hesitant act by not diving in there makes me wonder why he didn't, and only he can answer that question.
So then, what will Carolina look at in the film and get sick about, based from what you saw from your perch yesterday?
Well, Jonathan Stewart twisted his ankle pretty severely, I think, in that first quarter, and he was not the same back after that. The other thing about Carolina's offense is they don't have the speed at running back to get outside. The way they get outside is on the read option with Newton pulling the ball and going around the corner. But I go back in the game to that trick play when it was a backwards pass to Ted Ginn, and he was going to throw a pass down the field to Cam Newton. And Malik Jackson came off on Newton and took that away, and Ginn was sacked, basically. And so at that point, they were at midfield, and they had momentum. But at that point, by not executing that play, they forced them into another 3rd and long. And when you go 3rd and long against Denver, then Miller is going to get you, or Ware is going to get you, or Malik Jackson's going to knock the pass down, or bad things are going to happen to your offense as they did all day long. But that trick play, to me, really took a lot of momentum away from the Carolina Panthers.
There's just a lot that looked out of sync yesterday, Dan. I mean, from that play in particular, Gano hitting the upright, even Ron Rivera, the coach of the year, his challenges were a little bit of a head scratcher. The first one I understand because it would have been such a big early first quarter play to Cotchery had that been overturned. But the second one, he only gained 4 yards even when he was correct by trying to get Manning down by contact, knowing already that one challenge was gone. He was out of challenges the rest of the game. He could have really, really put them behind the 8 ball in a crucial situation in the fourth quarter, knowing that in the first, Dan. That was a little bit of a head scratcher.
Yeah, I think he got some bad advice there from either a player or an assistant coach that saw the replay because it took a long time for him to get that challenge out. That was a killer because once you lose a replay, as we all know, that second one is gold. You've got to hang on to it because that may be the difference in the ball game, as you said, Rich, in the fourth quarter.
And last one for you, Dan. What do you think of the 2 quarterbacks joining you in that aforementioned bus room now with Favre and Ken Stabler being part of the new Kenton class?
They're kindred spirits, I think.
That's right.
I just wish the snake was around to enjoy it. That's such a sad situation, but, he absolutely deserves it. I couldn't have done the Miller Lite commercial without him. We had a lot of fun doing that. And with Favre, I mean, he absolutely is a 4-second debate there in the selection room, which, by the way, James Lofton and I were fortunate enough to be able to sit in and observe the whole process. First-time Hall of Famers have been allowed in that room.
No kidding. What'd you take from that process, Dan?
Well, hopefully next year we'll be able to get a vote. The board of directors has seen that there are a number of Hall of Famers that are in the media, and we cover each game and each team throughout the year, and we have an insight that maybe is a little bit different than the writers and the members of the media because of our experience as players and the fact that we do see so many players throughout our careers. I mean, I've been doing this now for 28 years, so I've got a pretty good idea of the history of the game and also who is deserving. So, the guys that got in, I think, was just fantastic. I still think, though, that Don Coryell should be among that group, and someday maybe he will.
So at one point, did you want to interrupt? Did you just say, hey, I disagree with what you're saying? Or like if you had a challenge flag at any point during this process, would you have thrown it from your position, Dan?
Well, my tongue was bleeding, I know, from biting it a few times. That was part of the deal, that we were there to observe, and I did address the members of the media when I had to leave to go to a production meeting for Westwood One. And it's an amazing process. They're so thoroughly prepared. They're passionate about their candidates. And I really appreciate all of them for the hard work they put in throughout the year. I mean, they're already thinking about next year's class.
Dan, thanks for the time. I appreciate it. I'd love to get you in studio in what we call the non-playing season anytime if you're up for it.
Send me a plane ticket, pal.
All right, very good. We're on it. Thank you. That's Dan Fouts right here on The Rich Eisen Show.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern. On Audience.